everybody. How you doing? I threatened this before, so I'm going to fulfill my threat right now. I talked previously about my young adult fictions collection, what I have here, and also my kind of talking animal kids books. And the third part of it, the final part of it, is my Freddy the Pig series. Now, a lot of you have never heard of Freddy the Pig, probably, but for people of a certain age, kids who grew up probably anywhere from, say, the 40s up through the 80s, like myself, and I guess I grew up mostly in the 70s, but you might remember these books being in the public library system when you were growing up. And these are the Freddy the Pig novels. Now, there were a lot of them, 26, in fact, 25 novels in one poetry collection about this character, Freddy the Pig, and all the other intelligent animals on the Bean Farm in upstate New York, created and written by a gentleman called Walter R. Brooks. Now, Walter R. Brooks is also known as the man who wrote the original stories about Mr. Ed, the talking horse, which was made into a successful, albeit short-running, 3-season TV show in the 60s, Mr. Ed. The famous Mr. Ed, if you remember that show, or search it out on YouTube, you might get a kick out of it. You know, they put like some kind of peanut butter or something in the horse's mouth, and it moves its lips, and a famous cowboy star, I wish I could remember his name right now, did the voice of Mr. Ed, and he talked only to his owner, Wilbur, who always spent more time with his talking horse than he did his very attractive wife, played by Connie Wills. But anyway, it's an amusing show. Ed, Clint Eastwood appeared in an episode, and Ed does crazy things like goes to Hawaii and rides a surfboard and all this sort of stuff. It's broad but unusual and fun comedy. And the Mr. Ed stories were originally created and written by this gentleman, Walter R. Brooks, who created the Freddy the Pig series. And there were 25 of these stories. I think all but 2 were published in magazines sometime in the 40s and the 50s. Let's see, I think they were published in Esquire, Liberty, Argosy, and the Saturday Evening Post. So pretty, high standard sort of very popular magazines of the day. And they look pretty fun. I haven't read any of his Mr. Ed stories. One of them was used as the Hollywood pitch by producer Arthur Lubin to create the Mr. Ed TV series. But we're not here to talk about Mr. Ed. We're here to talk about Freddy the Pig. Now, Walter R. Brooks, he was born in 1886 and he passed away in 1958. That's when the last Freddy the Pig book was published. The books were published between 1927 and 1958. And they were pretty popular by children's books standards. They were very witty, full of some sly humor and satire, but not a heavy-handed sort of satire. More really based on kind of character of both the animals and the people they interact with. Now, I have a big hardbound edition. I don't think I've shown this one off yet, of the first 3 Freddy the Pig books. Now, we should talk about one of the important aspects or reasons for the series to be so well remembered and beloved is the artwork, the line drawings by an artist called Kurt Weiss or Visa or Weiss or Wise. I don't know how you pronounce his name. It's Wiese. He has some really evocative art in these books that I'll show you here and there as we go. Some very fun and enjoyable art scattered throughout, illustrations, and of course he does the covers. Now, this was given to me by my friend and fellow Freddy fan. In fact, one of the things we bonded over as kids was our love of Freddy books and other talking animal books, and that was my friend Kelly, who gave me many of my books in my collection, or at least many of the rarer ones, I suppose. Some of the kids' books and young adult books I showed in the past, series books, as well as my copy of Worst Things Waiting, which was very kind of him. And he gave me this, the Freddy Anniversary Collection. Now, there have been various publications of Freddy books over the years, the ones that were published for the library. Those ones are probably harder to track down. Anyhow, Freddy and his animal friends and human friends, there are many, many human characters very memorable throughout this series. And the writer, Brooks, really establishes a really interesting and fun world with real vivid characters of both the animals and the humans, and it's again helped immeasurably by Kurt Wise's art. So the series starts with Freddy Goes to Florida. You'll see the three individual books reproduced, their covers reproduced on this cover. And I have the first three here. I have Freddy Goes to Florida, which was published in 1927. Freddy Goes to the North Pole, and Freddy the Detective, which is the first Freddy book I ever read, and I believe my friend Kelly also. So this is a very popular one and has seen many reprints where Freddy reads a bunch of detective stories and starts investigating some cases, teased mercilessly by his kind of friend, Jinx the cat, sarcastic black cat. I also have a hardback copy of Freddy Goes to Florida that was put out by Overlook Press. Overlook Press came to the rescue in the 2000s and republished every single one of the Freddy books in these beautiful hardcover editions. They're all around $24-25, so they weren't cheap, so I didn't buy a lot of them. They also put them out in, I believe, in paperback. Yeah, so I have a mix of paperbacks and different editions and hardback editions. So you'll see some of that great art on the cover there. And they have this, very nice editions, even nicer than the original library editions. They have a nice binding, some little art on the cover there, nice end papers. Now, Freddy is not the main character to begin with. Some of the other characters like Charles the Pompous Rooster and his hen-pecking wife, Henrietta, literally he's hen-pecked, and who she punctures his pomposity whenever possible. There's Jinx the cat and Mrs. Wiggins the cow, who eventually runs for president. There's lots of sly political satire in these. Again, I know the word satire sends a lot of people kind of going, I don't want to deal with that. But the satire is more of a humanistic level and quite, not on the nose by any stretch. So let's talk about Freddy. Freddy is similar to his author, I guess, in some ways. The author, Walter R. Brooks, worked as an ad man for a while, and then he went on to work for the Salvation Army. He was one of the editors for the New Yorker magazine between the years 1932 and 1933. He apparently came into an inheritance and retired to be a full-time writer, retired from other jobs in 1940 for the last 18 years of his life, and pumped out these Freddy books. And that's a boon to young at heart readers throughout the world there. But there's a group of fans called the Friends of Freddy. There's articles in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Globe and Mail and other places that champion these books for their witty writing and vivid characterization, wordplay, and sense of fun, as well as satirizing various world events, or overall really satirizing and puncturing the pomposity of various enemies that Freddy comes into contact with. They're usually always shysters or stuck-up, haughty rich people or criminals, etc. He also has a recurring enemy called Simon the Rat. Simon and his rats sometimes trying to invade the bean farm. Again, these animals, Freddy and these other animals, they live on this farm run by Mr. and Mrs. Bean. And Mr. Bean is very proud of his talking animals that sometimes get notoriety around the country, but he doesn't really know what to do about their various antics, and just kind of smiles benignly and doesn't really interact with them too much, but a little bit. And Mrs. Bean, of course, is their staunch supporter. So plus all these other human characters. There's the sheriff, and that's good friends with Freddy, and of course the newspaper editor in town, and an elderly woman, spinster lady called Mrs. Peppercorn, who's really a fun character, and Mr. Camphor, this millionaire who hangs out with Freddy where he can here and there and is often beset by leeching relatives trying to come in and steal money from him. If you kind of think of a little bit of a Americanized, down-home kind of P.G. Wodehouse sort of feeling mixed with, you know, a sense of kind of, I guess, absurdist and just fun and adventure. It's a really nice mix. So let me go through the ones that I have in order. I have several more on Kindle as well. So I had, like I showed you, I had this nice Overlook Press edition of Freddy Goes to Florida. Now, again, like I mentioned, Freddy is only a kind of a important but side character in this book. It's kind of more of an ensemble piece. But quickly, Freddy went to the fore and became the chief character. And Freddy is a well-rounded character because he has weaknesses. He's lazy. He overeats. Because he's a pig. He's a little plump, you know. But he is he's also a detective, a reporter, a pilot. He learns to fly planes. He writes poetry and various doggerel verse. He runs a political campaign against Simon the dictator, later the rat, and he does many other things. So the book's in order. I'll go through the kind of the titles in order and then show when I have one. So after those first three that I showed that I had in this book, Freddy Goes to Florida, Freddy at the North Pole, and Freddy the Detective. Like I said, I have a Kindle version also of Freddy the Detective, and I know I have a paperback edition somewhere. I can't find it right now. Then there's Freddy and Freginald, who I believe is a boy, another boy, maybe a nephew of the Beans who comes to stay and they become friends. I've not read that one, nor do I have that one. I first discovered this series, of course, in my local library growing up in rural Washington State, and so would many of the other fans of the series. That's how they came across them. Then there's Freddy and the Clockwork Twin, where I guess Freginald maybe sticks around for a while over a summer vacation and builds a kind of robot kind of character. I haven't read that one either. Freddy the Politician, which I have in a trade paperback format from the Overlook Press, not the hardback. Again, really nice art. There's Jinx the cat. Now, of course, these animals are often interacting with each other, but they're not eating each other, which is good. There's intelligent horses, of course, talking dogs. There's 3 cows, Mrs. Wiggins, Mrs. Wurzburger, and I forgot the other one. It's been a while since I've read a Freddy book. There's Charles and Henrietta, the chickens. There's, I think there's Uncle Wesley, this duck character, and his 2 nieces, these 2 ant duck characters, and there's all sorts of characters they come across, human and otherwise. This one, of course, I'll just read a little bit of the back to give you a little sense of it. Freddy the Pig, the Renaissance Pig, the New York Times Book Review of Bean Farm, is back to delight legions of fans of all ages in new editions of these all-American children's classics. And again, these are not short books. They're usually 250 to 300 pages, chapter books. They're very witty, full of wordplay and fun. And again, those great illustrations. So Freddy, the good-natured pig with the poetic soul, has played many a role. Now, in his generous, altruistic way, he is promoting a campaign to get Mrs. Wiggins, the cow, elected president of the First Animal Republic. And as he himself is an officer in the newly organized First Animal Bank, he has more than a modicum of influence, if he can just figure out how to use it. From 1927 to 1958, Walter R. Brooks wrote 26 books starring one of the great characters in American children's literature, Freddy the Pig. Freddy is every pig. He oversleeps, overeats, daydreams, and writes poetry. He is by turns a cowboy, explorer, politician, publisher, poet, magician, banker, campaign manager, pilot, detective. Whatever the situation may call for, Freddy always rises to the occasion. The Freddy books are a remarkable achievement in children's literature. And I agree. Anyway, in this particular one, I think he's, this is going to have plenty of political satire in there, but again, not in a boring or overhanded way, heavy-handed way. Okay. Then we have Freddy's cousin Wheatley, where his a pig cousin comes to visit, causes some problems there. Freddy and the Ignoramus, not the Ignoramus, the Ignoramus. And I have another beautiful hardback, newer edition. The Ignoramus is some kind of supposed ghost hunting the woods around Mr. Camphor, the millionaire's estate, I believe. And, you know, there's another nice frontispiece, a bit of art there. And this was published originally in 1941 and copyright renewed in 1969. And this edition hails from 1998. Brooks's writing style is a real kind of friendly, loquacious, like you're sitting in the bar or sitting on the porch step and he's telling you a story. It's really fun way he describes things. Good gracious, said Freddy. Anyway, the plot in this one is, I believe, someone is getting kind of a Scooby-Doo-ish sort of deal, I guess. Someone is trying to scare people away from this place because they're wanting to, make money off it themselves for some, I think it's an old hotel or something. And then Freddy ends up staying there to investigate under his detective persona. And then we have Freddy and the Perilous Adventure, which sounds really cool, but I don't have that one. I believe he goes up in a balloon and flies around somewhere. Freddy and the Bean Home News, where Freddy starts a rival newspaper on the farm. This was written in 1943, so it involves collecting scrap metal for the World War II Army effort. And that's one of the main stories that Freddy publishes at first, and he goes toe-to-toe with this nasty rich lady who's bought out the Centerboro town newspaper and is trying to spread fake news about the animals attacking people, etc. It's kind of ahead of its time in some ways, I guess you could say, but it's a really fun book. But I don't have that one in my collection at the moment. I do have Freddy and Mr. Camphor, the millionaire friend of Freddy that's beset by some nasty relatives that Freddy helps extricate, blood-sucking relatives that move in and make Mr. Camphor's life miserable. And there you see Freddy relaxing on a houseboat out in the lake near Mr. Camphor's estate. So Freddy is simply one of the greatest characters in children's literature, school, library, journal. And you'll see the Freddy collection at the top there. And Freddy doing some painting. Again, he's not perfect in almost any of these things, but he gets by for sure. Freddy the Pig is positively worn out. Not only is he president of the First Animal Bank, but he's editor of the animals newspaper, the Bean Home News. Luckily for Freddy, his friend Jinx the cat and his cousin Wheatley convince him to take a position as caretaker of wealthy Mr. Camphor's estate on the lake and spend the summer in his houseboat. But when odd things start happening and a couple of old enemies show up in town, Freddy has to take a break from relaxing and put his detective skills to work. The American version of the great English classics such as the Pooh books or Wind in the Willows, says the New York Times Book Review. Now, it's very different from those, but I guess the sense of whimsy is there for sure, similarly. Celebrating 75 years of Freddy the Pig. You'll see the little badge on the front there. Very cool. And again, it's going to sound silly that an adult's talk about these books, but you'd be surprised how good they are. They are really fun to read, even as an adult. All right. Next, we have Freddy and the Popinjay, one of my favorites from my youth, which includes a jousting tournament with this friendly lynx. They set up this kind of jousting tournament. I remember that, where they have pillows on the end of sticks while they joust. And, here's a picture of Mr. Bean relaxing while Freddy and Jinx, and I believe, is that Henrietta? No, that looks like it's Charles the Rooster up above there. They're wearing muzzles so they don't hurt each other by accident. Anyway, really lively and fun illustrations. Poor Freddy is attacked by a robin who mistakes his tail for a worm, but Freddy, always a thoughtful pig, is determined to help this nearsighted bird. He needs glasses. Freddy does his best to find new glasses for his new friend J.J. Pomeroy, and along the way, he and the other animals find a surprising ally in the slingshot-wielding Jimmy Witherspoon. That's another of the neighbor kids who likes to shoot rocks with a slingshot at Freddy and kind of bully the bean farm animals, and sometimes is Freddy's nemesis, but sometimes teams up with them, I guess, in this one. It's been a long time since I've read that one. Then we have Freddy and the Pied Piper, which I don't have, or Freddy the Pied Piper. Freddy the Magician, which I have on Kindle, where of course he becomes a magician, and I believe he's helping out again, one of the many friends that he makes is this leader of a circus that comes to town, and Freddy maybe becomes a magician to help them out. Usually there's some corrupt local politician or local business person or just out and out criminal trying to discredit or bilk out of money some friend of Freddy's, and he has to come to the rescue, so to speak, with his animal friends. Oh, I do have Freddy the Pied Piper. My mistake. It's right here. Okay, Freddy, it comes before Freddy the Magician. Freddy the Pied Piper. When the circus falls on hard times, Freddy concocts a plan to raise money by driving out the mice in a nearby village. However, he must also contend with angry farm mice, kidnapping, and a dangerous trek to Virginia. After all his hard work, Mr. Boomschmidt, the circus owner, refuses to accept any charity, and Freddy must find some other way to save his beloved circus. So, Freddy hanging out with the lion. So, of course, all the circus animals have their own vivid personalities in this. Free cheese for the mice. Okay, so I do have a copy of Freddy the Pied Piper, physically. And then I also have Freddy the Magician, Freddy Goes Camping. I think I have Freddy Goes Camping also in Kindle form. But I have this different edition. This is a Knopf edition. They didn't publish all the Freddy books in paperback, but they published some, including Freddy the Detective. It's kind of ugly cover depiction of Freddy. I don't really like it, but I'm happy to have it. But luckily inside it does maintain those great Kurt Weiss illustrations. I wish I knew how to pronounce his name. Here's Freddy wearing his coonskin cap in a canoe. There's only one Freddy the Pig. He's a detective, a pilot, a magician, an explorer, a poet, a politician. You name it, he'll try it. What's more, he and his friends from the Bean Farm have always kept readers on the edge of their seats, laughing, that is. Here are danger, fun, pluck, and the magic of friendship in the classic adventures by Walter R. Brooks. Enjoy. So they do several of the earlier ones, including Freddy Goes to Florida, etc. Freddy Plays Football, which I know I have also on Kindle. Freddy the Cowboy, which I do have in Overlook Press paperback edition. They're nice and light. And you'll see Freddy rootin' and tootin' it up in this one. And Freddy the Cowboy, Mr. Flint, the owner of a nearby dude ranch, is planning to rob the First Animal Bank, and it's up to Freddy to save the day. When Freddy ruins his plans, Flint seeks revenge. Together with his faithful friends, Freddy faces off against his enemy in a series of confrontations. The rivalry leads up to a dramatic shootout in the cosmetics department of the Busy Bee, and a humorous fate for the troublesome Mr. Flint. The Wild West was never like this. Anyway, Freddy riding on his friend, the horse. What is it Cy the horse? I forgot the horse's name. Like I said, it's been a while, but there's yip, yip, yippee. And down the slope came a small, plump cowboy. I'm sorry, these books are so fun. Then there's a kind of a sequel of sorts inside the series called Freddy Rides Again. I don't have that one. Then there's Freddy the Pilot, which I have on Kindle. Self-explanatory title there, although you can bet there's a lot more plot. The plots are quite involved. I think this is another one where he has to help Mr. Boomschmidt's circus. Freddy the Spaceship, which I do have on Kindle. One that I'll probably never bother collecting. It's the collected poems of Freddy the Pig. There's plenty of poetry of Freddy's not exactly great poetry scattered throughout the regular novels. I don't need a book of just his verse, frankly, but it's fun that it was put out. Then we have the last 5 novels. So we have Freddy and the Men from Mars, which, again, like it sounds, there's real Martians that come down. Freddy befriends them, of course. They get involved in some sort of a wild and wacky plot. Then after that, the Martians stick around and form a baseball team. Freddy and the baseball team from Mars. And here's Freddy in one of his many disguises that he somehow fools some people with. There's the Martians right there. Mr. Boomschmidt's circus in Centerboro boasts a new attraction, 6 real Martians in their original flying saucer. The first 6 Martians ever to be exhibited anywhere. But Mr. Boomschmidt feels the customers are not getting their money's worth. Freddy decides to help by organizing a Martian baseball team. Anyone who can imagine a baseball team consisting of Martians, an elephant, an ostrich, and Mr. Boomschmidt, with Freddy as coach, has a slight idea of what's in store. Okay. And then we have an ice skating horse there. Good day, madam, a voice interrupted. So Freddy's talking to his friend, Mrs. Wiggins, very sensible cow, and in comes this lion, this noble lion character from the circus. Anyway, most fun. Then Simon the Dictator. Freddy and Simon the Dictator. So their old enemy, Simon the Rat, is up to mischief again. And there's Freddy wearing a disguise yet again there. Warnings had been printed in both the Bean Home News and the Centerboro Guardian, but nobody paid much attention to them. An animal revolt? Preposterous, said the Beans and all the other humans. And then the outrages began. Cars were stopped and overturned all over the county. Farmers starting out to do their morning chores were driven back into the house. Cows refused to come in at milking time. Rabbits pulled Mrs. Bean's clothesline down. In Centerboro, cats were insolent to their mistresses. Horses went out of their way to insult people on the street. A car with a black dog at the wheel roared up Main Street and knocked over several pedestrians. Quietly, quite a few farms were taken over. Most of the bean animals remained loyal, but they weren't organized. Another desperate situation made to order for Freddy the Fabulous Pig. Wow, that one sounds pretty epic there. Arise, pig. Once in a while, Jinx sinks his claws into Freddy to get him out of his funk and laziness. Jinx is an interesting character. Mr. Bean had a shotgun under his arm, which he leveled at the wolves. So, as you can see, there's quite a lot of action and antics in these books. A couple more. I have Freddy and the Flying Saucer Plans. It's another one of my hardbacks from Overlook Press. I really need to track down and buy these. They're a little expensive in the used market, but usually in the $10 to $20 range, so not so bad. This is another one that has a nice cover and binding and end papers inside, and nice art and frontispiece in there. Again, replicating the original publication. Overlook Press really did a beautiful job and got all 26 volumes out, and including a new volume of a biography of Walter R. Brooks, written by one of the founders of the Friends of Freddy fan club, a man who was a librarian somewhere in Los Angeles, I believe. Here's Freddy in his cowboy gear, playing his guitar like Roy Rogers. You hear it on the inside flap. It talks about the plot. Freddy the Pig was lounging in front of the First Animal Bank, of which he was president, when Uncle Ben raced by with 2 sets of flying saucer plans, one true and one false. With spies in full pursuit, Uncle Ben was naturally looking for a safe place to hide the plans, and the true ones, of course. As usual, Freddy was ready to help. Would you believe that Freddy was a traitor to his country? Some of the animals in Centerboro did when the famous pig was locked up in jail. Freddy had decided that jail was a good place to be for a while. It gave him a chance to work out a scheme for letting the spies steal the flying saucer plans, the fake ones, of course. Any seasoned Freddy fan would expect a series of hilarious mix-ups after that, complete with complications provided by Jinx the cat, Mr. J.J. Pomeroy the robin, and the other famous animals from the Bean Farm, and he would not be disappointed. As usual, Freddy digs down into his disguises and comes up with a solution to the current problem, this time in the garb of a gypsy fortune teller, featuring highly amusing drawings by the incomparable Kurt Weiss. Anyway, those are a lot of fun drawings, and they certainly do add to the antics that happen in the book. Some of them are smaller, some of them are full page. Again, really nicely done. A couple of bullets ripped past his head. Maybe Freddy piloting this autogyro or early helicopter. And then we have the final Freddy book that was published either right after he died or right before he passed away from a sudden heart attack. Walter R. Brooks's Freddy and the Dragon. So he might have continued to write these if he hadn't passed away. Now, he wasn't, super young. But he wasn't old particularly either. He would have been about 71, 72 years old when he passed. Anyway, this is Freddy and the Dragon. Now, is it a dragon? I don't know. What do we got here? So, when Freddy and some of his friends return from a riding trip through New England, they land right in the middle of a rather cool reception from the Centerboro citizens. Trouble was afoot, and terrible things had been going on. Gardens raided, houses broken into, and even more alarming, there were threatening notes demanding protection money. Freddy and his friends set out to solve the mystery, taking on a headless horseman who proves no match for Freddy's own dragon. This one I have The Squirrels Who Squabbled, the Book Depository. So I must have ordered this from the Book Depository online store. I don't know if they're still in business or not. And we have, I wonder if the dragon is some kind of crocodile or something. It looks like a crocodile that he kits up to look like a dragon. Freddy visiting his friend Mrs. Peppercorn. There was a horse and a man grooming it. So again, illustrations that really sell things. The same moment Jinx landed on the man's head. Freddy tackling the man and Jinx helping out. So action and antics aplenty in the Freddy the Pig series. Really fun series. Hope you enjoyed that little run through of them. You're probably looking at me going, you're a whack job talking about these kids' books. But you'd be surprised how many fans of these books there are out there. Do a search for Freddy the Pig. You'll find several articles by well-respected journalists and writers who remember these books very fondly and recommend them to people to read to their own kids. And I think you'd be well off just reading them yourself. So if that's the kind of thing that you'd like, please check these out. If anyone that's watching has any memories of reading these Freddy the Pig books, please leave me a comment down below. Thanks for watching as always. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.